I came across this injured deer, and he's limping. He's not scared, but he's limping. Here's Virginia City below. I'm trying to go up to Ophir Hill, maybe Mount Davison. Might be better off just walking it, I don't know. It's a bunch of mines in Ophir Canyon, and there's a mine right here. These are dump piles for the mines. And we're starting off today doing a little metal detecting, some exploring with our vehicle. But we're gonna visit the old jailhouse, which is haunted, and the Peace Officers Museum at the old Storey County Courthouse from the 1800s. And then we're gonna visit the Comstock Gold Mill. We're gonna go check it out. The mill was built mainly to process the gold taken out of the Savage mine. There were some pretty brutal deaths and mining accidents. Oh yeah. Just got done metal detecting. We're going to be heading soon to the Peace Officers Museum. Do not try this at home. Hell, do not try this away from home. Do not try this at all. Unless you got a Rubicon or a very good Jeep with some tires, good tires. Because this is just a straight up harsh road. There's drop-offs on the side. I mean, you really have to pay attention to what you're doing, which I do. But it's still a very rocky road. And I was spinning my tires going uphill, and I just let it go back downhill, and I turned around on this road, and it's so narrow. It's narrow too. I turned around on this road. It took me 20 times to turn around on it. 20 turns of the steering wheel. But it gets better as you get down. That's why I continue to take it, because I'm like, well, this is not too bad. I've driven with roads with plants and a little dirt and rocks, but once you get higher up, it's all rock. And this was a gold mining camp. That's why I came up here to metal detect, but there is no gold. There's about 5 dump piles in this canyon, and a mill site, nothing. Couple bullets, nails, but nothing. And so I was a little disappointed, because I don't like taking roads like this for nothing. I like to at least know if I came up here, I seen something really good. And all I seen was a bunch of piles of horse dung, wild Mustang dung, and that's it. We'll hang out a little bit at the Peace Officers Museum. I'm going to go around and do a video and take some pictures of the courthouse. And I'm going to set up the tripod, get me and Tammy's picture before people start pouring in. The courthouse is closed, but the old jail's still open. When we come next time, or we'll come a weekday and we'll go to the courthouse. But you'll get to see the jail for today. And this is the beginning of our day. Started off with coffees and lattes. Little off-road and back in this canyon. This is Ophir Canyon. It was one of the top mining areas in Virginia City. Obviously, there's no gold left, because sometimes you can find old coins and gold, and those coins could be worth $100,000. So would it be a good day if I got $100,000? Yeah. I could buy a Rubicon with that kind of money. Then I'd be able to really pursue some off-roading. But I'm going to get a four-wheeler, and once I do, we'll start taking it to places like these. We're not going to mess with taking the Jeep up to roads as harsh as these in the future.
It's going to go around that way and out to the road.
Where? Yes. Yes. Well, we're almost back on pavement. Later on today, we'll go ahead, we'll hike up to Ophir Hill. It's actually a mountain, it's not a hill. But I could drive, because the road is kind of like this. It's not too bad. This road I was just on was much worse. That's because it's a mining district. Ophir Hill is not a mining district. I mean, there are mines out there on the mountainsides. However, with the thing about Ophir Hill, look at that old steam. That's an old steam boiler. They don't make them like they used to. But Ophir Hill is your gateway to the Mount Davison. Mount Davison was named after a geologist in the 1800s. Mark Twain used to pair up at Mount Davison. We're going to come back in December and we're going to either drive or hike to the top of Mount Davison. I got a back way in too, up the jumbo grade. But that's Mount Davison behind this hill. It's the tallest mountain in the Virginia range. It overlooks Virginia City, Washoe Valley, Carson City, Reno, the High Sierras, or the Carson Range of the Sierras, and multiple other great sites. And I will either hike it, we'll like go on a December morning and either we'll walk to the top and it'll only take an hour or two. It's like it's 1 or 1.5 miles to Ophir Hill and another mile to the top of Mount Davison. See the V on top? We're going to stand above that V. Not today. I could walk it today, but Ophir Hill sits to the right of that, and I just want to get to the top of Ophir Hill so I can get a nice view of Virginia City. It's one of the best, it's the second best view of Virginia City. So we're going to go ahead and do it up. There's a shack also here. We're back on pavement, but there's a down shack. Let me see here. Oh, this is where I took Ted. You remember this?
Yeah.
And that shack back there. I think. Look, there's a friggin' loose dog running
No, there's a
around.
lady standing
Oh.
outside. Just be careful because he's not on a leash.
Yeah, we're out of here. We're on pavement again. We're in the residential district. Or there's some historic mansions back here below Mount Davison, and some of them are very beautiful. But the residential district is tiered on the hillside. And all these mansions are huge. They date back to the 1800s. The Savage Mansion has 22 rooms. President Grant stood on that. And today I'll take you guys up to the Savage Mansion after we're done with the mill, because the owners or the superintendents of that mill lived and operated out of that mansion. The downstairs was for business, for the gold bars, banking, payroll, administration, while the upstairs, the two upstairs floors were for residential living room or den, bedrooms, kitchen. But Ophir Canyon is right between these two mountains coming up. Not Ophir Canyon because we were just in Ophir Canyon, but they label this all Ophir Canyon area. But the canyon we need to take up goes between Mount Davison and then the ridge we were in between off-roading on. There's a lot of history back here. That house is being redone. I love these old houses. Here's the Buckner House, 1875. Look, there's even apple trees growing. And up, there's about 2 other streets up on the top of the hill with a lot of beautiful houses. Then we got downtown right here, the Opera House. We're going to probably go to the cemetery on Halloween night. I was running it by Tammy. They only open the cemetery at night 1 day a year, and that's Halloween. And you can go wander around, and I think I'm going to do that. I think that we need to do some nice paranormal investigating up there. I mean, just walk around. Maybe we'll see some ghosts or something really awesome. Who knows? There'll be other people there, but, you know, who cares? Cemetery's huge. You can go wherever you want at night. This is Haunted House. Ah, that is funny. Look at this, the Cobb Mansion. No vacancy. That must be a bed and breakfast. What's this say? It's a plaque. Ugh. The Great Fire, 1875. The most spectacular calamity to befall Virginia City had its origins within 50 feet of this marker. Early on the morning of October 22nd, 1875, a coal oil lamp was knocked over in a nearby boarding house and burst into flames. Strong winds spread the blaze and 33 blocks of structures were leveled. The losses included St. Mary's in the Mountains Catholic Church, the Storey County Courthouse, which we're going to today, Piper's Opera House, the International Hotel, city office, and most of Virginia City's business districts. The office and hoisting works of the nearby mines were also destroyed, and there were several fire-related deaths that day. A new hydrant system was established after the fire, and a number of new hose houses, such as the one here that you see was constructed. This system still serves the community today together with a volunteer fire department. Standing above downtown Virginia City, and here's a hose house. So we're about to visit the old jail here at the old Storey County Courthouse. This is a designated haunted place. And of course, some TV show crews have tried to, and paranormal groups have tried to investigate this place. And some people have had some success rates with EVPs. You have to understand there are a lot of ghost stories associated with this courthouse. There's about 20 zinc statues of this kind, scales of justice, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I'll tell you what the plaque says. So I want you guys to know a little history before I start video recording on the inside of the jail. Storey County was organized in 1860, named after Captain Edward Storey, who was killed during the Pyramid Lake Indian Wars in Nevada. The prior courthouse erected on the very site was destroyed in the Great Fire of October 26, 1875. There was a fire as I was up on the hill. I read you guys the plaque, but I'll say it again. There was an oil lamp, and someone had knocked it over, caught the boarding house on fire, and then the winds had picked it up. We're in the mountains, pretty high up. It does get windy here. Any chance of a fire, it just takes on off. And that's what happened, and the courthouse was one of the first sites to burn down. It also burned many of Virginia City's early documents. Storey County hired the architectural firm of Knitzer and Rahm of San Francisco to design this replacement. Work began in 1876 by contractor Peter Burke and was finished in 1877 at a cost of $117,000. The courthouse also served as a headquarters for the Storey County Sheriff's Office until 1992, when the new facility was built on State Route 341, quarter mile from here. This building was one of two 19th century courthouses in Nevada still serving the county government. It currently houses the clerk, treasurer, assessor, comptroller, recorder, county manager, and county commissioner's office. The Statue of Justice, perched on the second floor above, is the only one to grace the exterior of a Nevada building and has been the source of much controversy. The 7-foot zinc figure was manufactured in New York, arrived in 1877 at the cost of $236. Over the years, a legend has evolved that she was one of the only few created not blindfolded. Research has proven that 20 such models exist in the country. Perhaps this is the one chosen by residents to make sure that justice would always see that justice prevailed on the Comstock. And people who often went to jail, the jail's behind the courthouse, but the cowboys and the outlaws and miners who committed crimes such as murder or anything that was horrific would end up being hung on Boot Hill. If you committed a crime and you were an outlaw, let's just put it this way, you were going to be hung on Boot Hill. First, you'd spend some time in jail festering behind this courthouse, and then they would walk you up about 2 miles from here, maybe 1.5 miles, to a place called Boot Hill, and you were buried in the cemetery below it. That's the way justice worked here. It was Wild Western swift justice. It's too bad we don't have a justice system like that, but this courthouse is still somewhat active. There isn't many courthouses of this age that are active in the state of Nevada, so it is historic and it is haunted. This has a rich and colorful history. It housed some of Virginia City's most notorious crooks. Also, it held the murder of Julia Bulett. He actually robbed her. He robbed her for a few personal items and ended up killing her. And he was hung because she was a madam, a very popular madam in the area, and a lot of the miners enjoyed their time with her. And they actually threw her a parade upon her death. And this guy roasted for what he did. The museum celebrates and preserves the history of law enforcement. They said some of the items date back to the 1780s and has the largest collection of law enforcement badges in the country from 1876 to 1991. There are 10 original cells in the Storey County Jail, 5 on the main floor, 5 above, and with solitary confinement cells in the center of each row. The top cells were used by females. However, in the earlier days, it did not matter, male or female. They just didn't care. Each cell had a bunk bed, and each cell could accommodate 4 inmates at a time. So you could have about 40 inmates housed here at a time. It was very rough. If you were to remain in this jail, it was very hard. You had a wall in the back. I'll show you guys it. Hi, good.
Are you coming into the museum?
Not yet, probably about 10-15 minutes.
Okay, I'm trying to make my cell phone work, so...
Oh, take your time. I'm just walking around looking. The courthouse was built in an Italianate style. Embodies the 19th century ideals of decorative opulence, of law and order. First county courthouse, as I was saying, was destroyed by the Great Fire 1875. In 1876, it was rebuilt. Courthouse was organized in 1861, named after Captain Edward Storey. Since this place held the county seat, a courthouse was needed. I'm just walking around. I just want to give you a tour of the grounds before we decide to actually enter this facility. And I've walked around it completely. They have modernized it. But like I say, if you stayed in this jail, this is exactly what you would look if you looked out your cell window or you were able to walk around. You'd see a wall. You didn't see no scenery or mountains. This was not a luxurious place. It was a place where you knew if you committed a very hideous crime, you were going to be not only in prison, but your last days you would spend in a tight little cell and then walked over the boot hill and hung. There was no lifetime in prison. You were just brought to the hill and hung. The facade of the building was decorated with ironwork, painted contrasting colors, and a pediment that included the date of the construction. 1876, also the National Centennial. And if you look inside, although we're not allowed into the courthouse because they're closed today, but if you were to look inside, you'd notice that the light fixtures are an Art Deco style. The other courthouse similar to this is in a town called Eureka. We have yet to do Eureka, but Eureka is a semi-living ghost town like Virginia City, and I really look forward to visiting. It's a good 300-mile ride, but I'm going to do it one of these days. I'm just going to go stay the night out there, and we'll go visit all the sites and do a nice urban exploration and paranormal investigation of that great ghost town, and I'll also take you to that courthouse once we visit there. But this one's very relevant as well. This Virginia City held the county seat for many years. It was part of government. Therefore, it was necessary to have a courthouse like this. And if you look, there's Mount Davison, the peak. You can see the V standing for Virginia City. That little wheelhouse you see, that's actually a hose house. There was many of them built after the Great Fire. That way, if a fire broke out, you had an available they're like fire hydrants. You had available hose. You could pull it out and put out the fire before it burned the whole town down. In 1875, 76, in the Great Fire, they did not have those. That is why 33 blocks had burned down. Chinatown was almost lost. And now if you look today, yeah, the walls still stand. The walls are probably older than the courthouse itself. But the original courthouse is gone, and this one had to be rebuilt. So I've given you guys pretty much a rundown of the history, and I hope you've enjoyed it. They've modernized it, obviously, so even though the courthouse is from 1876, it now has power and generators and propane gas, so, But this is a proposed haunted site. I don't want to get into the hauntings just yet. When we're busy and investigating the jail and the Peace Officers Museum, I'll get more into the history and the ghosts that haunt this place. There was a few famous outlaws that were jailed here. You can see the bars on the window. That's the jail. Like I said, it's in back of the courthouse. It's good stuff. The jail's haunted. I don't know about the rest of the courthouse, but the jail is haunted. Awesome. That's how ivy kind of has consumed this brick building. It's good stuff. More than likely, this sealed up building probably has a ghost of its own. Every location almost in Virginia City has a ghost story or two of its own. This is a lifetime collection of Walter Geist, or Gist. He's a one-time California police chief, displayed inside the 1876 Storey County Jail. He wanted to preserve the entire history of American law enforcement, not just the Wild West. So there is going to be 1930s Chicago gangster memorabilia, such as the death mask of John Dillinger you're going to see today. Thousands of badges, hats, guns, whistles, handcuffs are displayed, and even a billy club. There's strap iron doors, rock walls, because it's an old jail. It's a really awesome place. You can see the rock walls here. You guys should enjoy this place. Not only is it a good historical site to put on our website, but it's also very haunted. And it does not mean we're going to get any paranormal activity, but I'll take some readings, I'll take some EVPs, you never know. And we'll enjoy the time we have with this place here. And the billy club was for fire and tear gas. Just so everyone knows. But we'll get into more of this facility when we get on in. Pretty cool. The Nevada and the U.S. flag, united as one. Yeah, this is the Opera House. It's haunted. I can't get in till next year for an investigation. Many of the saloons downtown. It says the largest and finest collection of United States law enforcement artifacts dating back to 1784. It says Matt Warner robbed banks with Butch Cassidy. See his badge. Virgil Earp's Department Sheriff Commission. Items of the son of Sam murderer. 10 1876 jail cells. Have your picture taken. John Dillinger death mask. Badges, firearms, restraints. Before we enter the jail, let me just go ahead and read this. Nothing I already haven't said. It's better if I try to walk around and remember the history rather than try to read it, because then when I read it, I'm kind of stuck here. But there might be some facts that you guys don't know. This is the Storey County Jail. The two-story jail was completed in 1877, featured 10 cells. Each had bunk beds, state-of-the-art plumbing of the day. Women were housed in the second level, as I was saying. When the United States Supreme Court ruled that males and females could not occupy the same facility without being physically separated, they had put the inmates on separate floors. You had the women perhaps on the top, the men on the bottom. The jail operated from 1877 to 1986, when the county's insurance carrier decided it was unwise to operate it only with one exit in the event of a fire. Inmates were then housed in the Carson City Sheriff's Jail for a fee until the current jail was opened in 1992 on the outskirts of town on the truck route SR 341, which coming into town you can actually see that. I have some old pictures here. The walls of the jail were covered in a boilerplate after a successful escape in 1897 by an alleged murderer who had worked on the building as a bricklayer. Red Mike Langan knew the walls had not been properly filled with the rubble material as required and was able to dig his way out and escape. The county went in a great expense to see that this did not happen again. The doors of the jail were built by C.F. Nutting of San Fran, the same company that supplied the vaults in the rest of the courthouse. The stone floors are made of Kate's Peak andesite. It's a very dense and heavy granite which was quarried from the hills a short distance to the east of Virginia City. We are just off-roading up there. So let's go on in, shall we? Into the Peace Officers Museum in the old Storey County Jail. This is Lord Rick.
This was the largest jail in the state of Nevada when it opened in 1877. 10 cells.
Oh, wow.
The plan was 4 men to a cell, 2 to a mattress. But most plans change, and that one changed shortly after the jail opened. And they changed because there were so many women and children being arrested. The women were mainly arrested, but their children had to come to jail with them because there were no government agencies or private charities to help them. The churches in Virginia City from back in that time have been quoted saying we were struggling to take care of our own, so we couldn't help the others. So these were the women and children in the families that were moving out west. If the father in that family died, the women and children were just plain out of luck. Women were not allowed to own property. And I have been told repeatedly that if they had already purchased land and say they built a house and planted crops, when the husband died, no matter what improvements they had done, the whole thing just reverted back to the man he had bought the property from. So the woman was probably given, 2 weeks to get out of here type of thing. So they came to Virginia City for several reasons. One, they thought they could find help. The train ran through Virginia City, and they at least maybe could get some help to get on the train and go closer to where they had come from. And they could much easier to mail a letter to her family from Virginia City than from the middle of nowhere. So those were the main reasons they came. They did not find help when they got here. And they did not set this up as a shelter. They set it up as a women's prison. And it was the top 5 cells. They installed a wire fence from the ceiling to the bottom of the black railing, and they blocked the top of the stairs with the solid door in the middle. That's the solitary confinement door. Then they left all the rest of the cell doors open upstairs. Now, almost everybody else will tell you the fence was to keep the men and women separate. But the honest truth is the fence was to keep the women and children safe so they wouldn't fall from up there. They probably left the cell doors open for 2 reasons. So the kids could just run in and out, and maybe the kids would sleep at night, and so the women could talk to each other, maybe become friends, and then maybe be able to help each other in the future. So the main crime these women committed was stealing food to feed their family. And I have no records to prove it, but I believe that the sheriffs and the judges tried to help these women by making deals with the farmer. Again, no way to prove it. What I think proves it is the fact that the history books aren't full of horror stories about how many women and children died in Nevada prisons, because this was a county jail. If the farmer would not accept the deal, if they couldn't work something out for the woman who, say, stole 2 eggs, then her and her children would have been transported to the Carson City State Penitentiary.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a very, very tough time for women for a long time. So now they've given away half the cells, but they still have the same number of men to arrest. So the truth is, it became the norm to have 6 men, 3 to a mattress. And you can open that door and see how luxurious that little cell is.
For 6 people?
Yeah. In the beginning, they had a pot, no other plumbing. Many years after the jail opened and the women had left, one of the sheriffs had this brilliant idea to put urinals in. But he was a sheriff, he was not a plumber. So he literally stuck them in the corners with no drainage pipe.
Wow.
And in the 3rd cell, you can see very clearly how that ate through the steel in the walls. In the 1940s, they put one flush toilet in this cell for this whole row to share, and one in the upper cell for the upper row to share. And the jail operated 110 years. It closed in 1987 when the law went into effect that all prisoners had to be allowed an hour a day outside. By 1987, there was no way to add an outside yard to this building at all.
Really, it operated until 1987. Wow.
Yeah.
With that fabulous plumbing.
Uh-huh.
Dude, look at it.
Wow.
I mean, could you imagine 5 other people in there with you?
No.
Pretty hard to imagine, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the reason we are a museum is because of one man. Walter Guest was a police officer in Kensington, California. And in 1954, he went to a flea market, and there was a badge in a tray of jewelry. The woman selling this badge acted like it had magically appeared with her price tag on it. She didn't know anything about it, so he went just a tiny crazy, and he told her a badge should be honored and respected, and that we should know the history of the badge and share the badge and its history with the public. But we should not sell badges at flea markets. So he bought the badge. He collected more than 50 years and more than 10,000 badges.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So there's a case right here on my right that talks about him. There's a guest book we ask everybody to sign, and if you give us an email, we send out a newsletter once in a while.
Yeah.
I was saying quarterly, like the sign says, and the volunteer who does it was here about 3 weeks ago now, and he said, could you start saying once in a while or occasionally? Don't tell them I do it quarterly. And we have a board for visiting officers to sign. And in your outfit, I can't tell if you're visiting officers or not.
No.
But I'm thinking you're in costume too, that he bit you and brought you along. So look around.
Okay.
We also have outfits like I have on that you can dress up in. Or if you don't want to, I could take a picture of the two of you the way you are dressed. We have a backdrop here and a stage, which is excellent for pictures.
Oh, okay, cool.
So let me know.
Okay.
Okay?
Alrighty.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Roaming around the Peace Officers Museum. This used to be the old jail. I'll post that recording of the history from the curator. I think it's interesting. I do respect police. I used to go to the police academy and become a police officer, and I never ended up going. My life took a really bad turn when I was younger. The junior area. Some nice artwork done by the prisoners. Don't touch. You can see how dingy, there's a musty smell, but this is one of the only cells that had plumbing and a toilet. Four individuals would have to stay in prison here. They could wander around for an hour a day. The upstairs had fencing to protect the women and children, and they could kind of have a little free roaming during the day. But the lower floors held more of the notorious criminals, such as the men. And they'd be so bored that they would just try to find things to do, including this wall art that you see. 2 individuals per mattress. It's pretty tight. Looks like there was a little art there that became faded or wiped out. Look. Old cuffs. Wanted. Ohio State reward. Who is this? $25 reward. J.A. Leonard. Wow. Old guns. From 1780s, they said. There's a sign out front before you enter. It says they have memorabilia dating back to the 1700s. That's crazy. These badges are gorgeous. Oh, the ball and chain. That would be uncomfortable.
St. Louis Police, Kansas City
St. Louis Police, yeah. I want to see Dillinger's death mask. Don't you? That's so cool. The old pistols are pretty cool. Rumor has it that this place is very haunted. There's shadow entities. Memorabilia has been moved around. Folks have gotten scratched. Strange ghostly voices. It's actually quite interesting to hear some of the ghost stories. I've heard EVPs from this location, so we know that it's haunted. We definitely know that. Whether we'll get anything today, I don't know. We'll try. The woman in red, Evelyn Wilson. That's kind of creepy. Oh, Dillinger's gun. This is Dillinger's death mask. Look at that. Some people think that Dillinger had a look-alike. Major Ecker McDougall was a student at the Worsham and Bombing College in Chicago the night of June 22nd, 1934. John Dillinger was killed earlier in the evening. McDougall was called to the Cook County morgue to assist with his death mask. Some people say that when Dillinger was killed and the coroner examined the body, that the nose and some of the features did not match Dillinger, and they think that his look-alike was killed, or his double. I don't know. Some gangster memorabilia. The death mask, his gun, look, his pistol, the autopsy, when they pulled his death mask off, they had a picture. Did you know that they said that when they lifted the mask, that some of the features did not add up, that they think that his double was killed? It's a whole conspiracy. Nobody is sure that it was actually Dillinger behind the mask. They think it could have been his double.
The picture does not look like that face.
Exactly. That's what they were saying. It's a show about it, a conspiracy show, and they believe that maybe Dillinger was never killed at all. They believe that it was his double, or he had a look-alike all the time to protect him. They think his look-alike was who was killed. Because back then, they didn't have DNA. When they did autopsies, they didn't have the DNA to prove, hey, this is so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't prove who it was. They could say, oh, this looks like Dillinger, but was it really Dillinger? Nobody knows for sure. But back then, a $10,000 reward was a lot of money. And that was the mask. That was his pistol. That's the news article. That's the reward poster. And then there's a picture of them pulling off the mask, McDougall, at the coroner's office or the morgue. Pretty cool stuff. I found this accidentally. Look, Chicago Police, an old police box. Isn't that cool? That's what they used to have in St. Louis and Chicago, was the old police boxes with the little phone. You could call down there and be like, hey, we got a crime in progress. We need other officers. There's the old police hat up there. Oh, this is what I came for, was the Dillinger death mask. I'll say that there's playful ghosts that are here. They'll sometimes move the badges around. They've seen shadow entities, like shadowy figures.
One of the cells that goes up to 10, but that's because there's
The lights. So, right, there's a lot of power. It's going to be hard to take ghost readings here. Everything's lit. Every cabinet's lit. They have an old tear gas launcher here, too. These badges are nice. They got like the state picture or the state emblem on them. And people hear voices here at night. People have gotten EVP scratched. There's been movement, all sorts of different paranormal activity. That's why it's such a place worth visiting, not just for the history.
I didn't grow up in that time frame, man. Where,
The gangsters.
no, back when.
It was. The wife didn't get nothing. They were left poor with the kids.
Come on, on wheels, that woman owns that whole ranch.
Because she's a madam. That was the only way to make money.
No. The lady that owned the ranch. Remember the cattle rancher?
I don't know, because it's a show.
I'm guessing.
Right? It's not reality. No, this is a cool place. Because there's a lot of history here, but there's also some really good ghost stories. The typical apparitions.
Go for free Vargas, 5'6" dark complexion, driving a stolen Willis Knight sedan, has an automatic pistol, ex-con on parole from San Quentin.
Oh yeah, there's, you know, the guy that committed the bombings? Was it the Unabomber? It was somebody. They have his memorabilia here. What's that? Hanged in San Jose? Ooh, that is creepy.
The last California public lynching.
Last California lynching? Is that a woman to the left? That's a woman.
November, James Park, 1933. Burkhart, son of Santa, was kidnapped. Ransom demand by Thomas Thurman and John Holmes.
Creepy.
Tried to climb the rope, so they broke his arm, stripped him, and rehung him.
Whoa, that's brutal. Break the arms.
So they can't climb.
Right, ooh. Yeah, well, that was justice back then. And that's what they should do now. It'll stop half of the crimes that go on.
Thurman's pants removed and lit matches were held under his feet.
Wow,
Crime
looks like a lynch
ceased
mob.
for weeks in the town.
That's creepy. That's torture. That's torture at its best, man. Burn the feet, break the arms, hang you, strip you down, humiliate you before you die. Whew. We got to find that terrorist. They have this terrorist that did some bombings, and he's got, I think, some of his memorabilia here, like some of his weapons he used or whatever you want to. Some of his memorabilia. Of course, I'm not idling any criminal. I just want to see some of the history. I mean, this is history. Every badge, every piece of equipment was used in apprehending these criminals and bringing them to justice, you know? Wow. Bandit riders. This is some Wild West right here. Whoa, an old lie detector machine and cameras. Look at that. That's old school. And then here's a box with the chain. And look, there's a coffin. The shooting of Night Officer Richard Nash, the last Reno lynching. Wow. This is all local right here. The old gun. I'm not sure what the box is. It's one thing, the Wild West was so lawless. I mean, sometimes there was no trial. If you hurt somebody, you were hung on a tree that same day. They didn't mess around. Now it takes 3 years to get a trial, and people are getting away with too much crime. They're not scared because there is no justice. We don't live in a world of justice anymore. The Wild West was all about justice. Battering ram?
Yeah. Right?
Cool. I like that. Yeah, you hit it. It has a huge, each men would hold it on. I feel like I became the sheriff just in that instant. Bells and whistles, all the good stuff. I want to crank that, man. Like a big kid when it comes to this stuff. Two men would hold the battering ram by the handles, and then they would just force their way into an area if they had a warrant or were to apprehend a criminal.
Okay, thank you.
Old pistols. I like these little pistols. That's what I need. One of these little ones. Like the little magnums that they have, little handheld. Well, they're not that little, but I like the older ones. I don't like the new pistols. Use Lord of the Night or Angel of the Night. Either one. That way I can get their newsletter. This is so cool. Check out these little handheld pistols. They're the type that, like, these fit in your pocket. This little one fits in your pocket. And they have a lot of power. The barrels weren't very long on them, but a lot of power behind them police guns. You could take down a gangster with two hits. The old, wow, the old helmets from the 60s. Old biker helmets. And SWAT team. The last Reno, hey look, the last Reno PD call box. That's what those are, call boxes. Kensington Police. Old nightsticks, badges, a lot of badges, hats, uniforms. There's an old logbook here. This is Sparks right here. All Sparks. They have a lot of local memorabilia. Reno, Sparks. I bet you Carson City. One of them, I'd like to find the Carson City display.
That's the badge, first issue by the Nevada State Police.
Oh yeah, the state police. Look at the old uniforms. That's phenomenal. This is all local. Nevada. Right here, of course, they have memorabilia from, see, 1908 to 1949. Huh? A creepy mannequin. It always looks like it's looking at us. All the mannequins do. Probably possessed. Wonder why the place is haunted. Things can kind of live inside the mannequins and watch you all day long. In the jail are covered in plate steel. In 1897 it was discovered that the 26-inch thick wall was hollow, like I was saying, and that's why someone escaped. The floor stones are 8 inches to 10 inches thick. The large strap steel double doors were added in 2009 when the museum was opened. And trust me, the doors are extremely heavy to move. This place was quite fortified. The jail housed women on the second level and the men on the lower till 1963. There was a heavy wire mesh enclosed in the upper tier, and the end cell door was relocated to lock the women within the upper tier and keep the men out, just to keep them safe. The original image printed on the linen poster shows the courthouse in 1950 with a 1950 Ford Virginia City Police or Storey County Sheriff car in the front.
This is solitary.
This is solitary?
Yeah, see?
Above it's solitary as well. Oh yeah. Holy crap.
See that toilet?
That's their toilet?
That's all the plumb.
Don Borax. Police kill pair in Riptown fight. Minden Police, Douglas County. Ormsby. Oh, here's Carson City right here. Look. Because it was Ormsby County at the time. Wow. I love local history. Douglas County Sheriff. Winnemucca. They have everything. All the Nevada police departments here. Look at the old top hat. I love it.
On duty. In fact, it was expected that officers would socialize in taverns as part of their duties.
Is that like me? In between cemetery investigations, I stop for an ale? Like I'm going to do today?
How I said, why is it on all the cop shows they all drink?
They all drink? That's why. Now you know why.
Because it's socially acceptable for a cop to be drunk, huh?
Yeah, but if we were to do it, we'd lose our jobs, won't we?
Right? Oh, yeah, there's the top hat, I see it.
Cool, huh? I want that top hat. Yeah, it's 1800s old. So you and I are going to have our pic taken. I'm going to get a police uniform on. And you are too. I'm going to blow it up and put it in a frame. I got to remember my... This is a memorial room.
I know, that's what I said. It just has a sad feel to it.
If there's anybody here, give me a sign that you were here. There were some notorious criminals that were held in this jail cell. Like I said, Julia Buellit's killer. You know, he killed the madam, basically robbed her for a few cheap pieces of jewelry and I think a couple of her clothing. I don't know what a man would want with a madam's clothing. But he was caught and he was hung in Boot Hill. And they have this memorabilia. I can't remember. I have it written down. It's some famous terrorist piece. It's one of the more famous pieces. If you can find it, let me know. This is New York City. Just like they have Dillinger's Mask, they have a couple other famous criminals, guns and gangsters from Chicago. There's just so much.
Gun, it's so tiny, like what damage could it possibly do?
You might put a little pellet in your ass or something, right? New York, America's finest. They still wear some of the old uniforms if you go to New York. Just had gotten done taking some photos of us dressed in police uniform, the old school ones, and my camera was sitting here as I was getting dressed. I'm sitting here getting dressed, and Tammy says it took a picture on its own. Well, this is a state-of-the-art camera. It does not take photos on its own unless you set it that way. There's a timer on it, but timer was not set. Police, drug, and massive manhunt in Reno. Wow. This guy's pretty creepy. Hoff slang. Oh, 1979. Oh,
Forget your mask.
yeah. We need that. That's my theme this year is Jason Voorhees, Lord Rick Voorhees. So cool. I'm still trying to find that bomber.
Just like those.
You know what I want? This. I want the helicopter on my desk. I just think it was weird. My camera took a pic on its own. Although we are near Dillinger's Mass, so, you know. Every item here may have some energy associated with some of these badges or officers who passed away. That's why... No, some of them were found at flea markets, but look, Amelia Earhart, look. Oh, wow. Awesome. Old police radio. Suspect cornered. Hostage free after 3 hours. The death photo? Ooh, that's pretty morbid. There's a lot of morbid photos here, man.
There were 5 death masks that were made.
5 death masks? Really? I did not see that. John Dillinger was known as a public enemy #1 due to his criminal activity. He was lured to his demise by Evelyn Wilson, also known as the Woman in Red. Ah, this was the Woman in Red. I did not know that. It's been a while since I watched a show on the history. After I was waiting and waged on the assault on Dillinger that evening that caused the transfer of his distinctive rating to the baby-faced Nelson due to Dillinger's timely demise. 5 death masks were made that night. This is one of them. The Colt semi-auto pistol is similar to one Dillinger carried at the time of his death. A relic Dillinger's gun. Still creepy. Doesn't matter how you look at it. It's creepy stuff. Look, he's got a scar. There's a scar under the eye.
A couple of scars. I'm telling you, that face does not look like that face.
Well, that's what the show was about. That the faces don't match. The scars were off. The nose was off. Some people.
That's what I'm looking at. Is the nose and the mouth.
Some people.
Because look at his lips. His upper lip's really small and his bottom lip's
That was
big.
on the show too. They were talking about the lips. Some people think that he was brought into protective custody or someone took him out quietly, and that this was his double. I don't know. A lot of dictators and world leaders and politicians have doubles. That's what, he was a very smart criminal. He probably had a double because there were so many hits placed on him. Serious. It's still interesting. This memorabilia probably all comes with a little energy or haunts. I'm sure some of the merchandise has haunting. You know how dolls get haunted, and uniforms, badges, all that can come with some kind of spiritual residue of the past. This place has a lot of ghost activity. Like the lady was mentioning about strange pictures and things. People get them all the time. They also get EVPs here. That's why I've been running my recorder since I've been here. Because I'm hoping I'm going to get something strange, X-ray machine. Oh, yeah. X-ray machine and water cannon. 80 pounds, wow. Sheriff's office. Oh, there's the safe. I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, 8, 12 years old when this place shut down. And they still had prisoners from Virginia City in here. It was still operable. But the reason why it closed, they only had one fire escape. It became a hazard in case of a fire, so they're like, no, gotta close this place.
And the fact she said that they didn't have an outdoor yard.
Yeah,
It became a law that they had to have a place for them to go outdoors.
there's only like 10 feet of concrete in the back, and it's got a stone wall like 15 feet high. You can't even see the mountains out back. You know what I mean? There's no scenery or anything. This is the main foyer of the courthouse. We'll have to go in the courthouse when they're open. It's real pretty in there. Yeah, I think so.
It is a huge bag. Oh, I hope the travel bud's in there, we can travel.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good time.
Thanks. That was awesome. Here, check out this back here. I want to show you something. And I want to get pics of those flowers, the pretty wildflowers. What'd you think of that place? Pretty nice, huh? It was historical, and I bet you I'll get some EVPs. A lot of people who come here get strange, ghostly voices. I've heard some of them on the internet from other groups. Check out this. There's an old fire hose house, like the one up on the hill. They had one at every corner. That way, if there was a fire, they could put it out. And see, here's the jail cells right here, the back end of all the cells. Or not that back end, but they had bars so you couldn't escape. Because they allowed the prisoners to be quite free. They had a little fence, but... yeah. There we go. Julia Bullitt was murdered. I just wanted to reiterate that this is the Mustang Ranch Steakhouse. And it's all based on Julia Bullitt, who was an icon of Virginia City. She was a madam, but she raised funds for the Union during the Civil War. She's a pretty good person. And she was robbed, and we just came back from the courthouse, and the old Storey County Courthouse in jail, and he actually her killer spent time in that jail and eventually was hung, if you look, on Boot Hill. And that's where her killer was hung. But I just want to say, the Mustang Ranch Steakhouse, we did an investigation in the basement at the Julia Bullitt Museum. It has a lot of old artifacts on the brothel and the bordellos that were here. And she's buried just somewhere down in here. I can't give you an exact pinpoint, but it's just about a half mile down in this area. Her grave's kind of hidden back in here, I believe. We'll eventually find it. We were looking at night and couldn't find it. We were about 200 feet off, according to a friend of mine. I just want to show you the view. We're at the Mustang Ranch Steakhouse. This is the view. You have the back of the Silver Dollar Saloon, and you have these beautiful mountains which we were in. You have some mines high up, and then straight ahead is the Comstock. We've investigated about 15 to 20 sites. I promised I'd do all of Virginia City, and we're pretty close. But here's St. Mary's Haunted Hospital, which is now the Art Center, and St. Mary's Church, St. Mary's in the Mountains, which was also haunted. This place turned out to be haunted. Actually, every place I've done has had some kind of activity. I've gotten EVPs or weird photos. I love this place. There's mines all downtown. You can see the dump piles. But we're about to head out, and our next location is the Comstock Gold Mill, which is probably haunted. There's a lot of deaths that took place. We'll do a little shopping. We just had lunch. I had a pastrami burger, some fries, and after the day's over, I'm going to go have at the Bucket of Blood Saloon some beer, some ales, and we'll head home. But we're on our way to our second location. One more thing, that's called Sugarloaf. You can see for almost 200 miles. I stood on top of there. I climbed it. Rock climbed to the top, and there's a mill below it that's also haunted too. I even walked the road, and see that peak over here? My son and I, we stood on top, and we hiked back behind those mountains in the middle of winter. It was so cold. And that was pretty creepy. We found this 18-inch track in the snow, and it's just 2 tracks and disappeared on the side of the mountain. Was it Sasquatch? I don't know. Does Sasquatch roam the desert? If he's alien, he might. This is Lord Rick. Peace out. Got some wild horses coming through. Look at that. Can add it to our nature album.
Laddies. They're stalling traffic.
Wow, they're loud.